Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're stepping right into the shoes of the ancient initiates. We're going to decode some of the most profound, timeless, esoteric wisdom ever passed down through human tradition. We are taking a text that you've almost certainly heard of, and we're about to look at it through an entirely different and, honestly, kind of mind-bending lens.
Okay, let's just dive right in by challenging what we think we know about the infamous four horsemen of the apocalypse. I mean, for centuries, these figures have been viewed as these terrifying harbingers of global destruction, right? But what if we've had it completely backwards this whole time? What if we frame them not as impending doom, but as this magnificent piece of celestial architecture? What if this whole thing isn't about the literal end of the Earth at all, but rather a brilliant hidden map of the stars looking down on us?
Now, to actually read this ancient cipher, we first have to understand the rulebook. Central to this esoteric tradition is the concept of alchemical transformation. And this process is defined by four very specific color stages. You have megrido, which is black, albedo, which is white, rubedo, which is red, and citronitis, a pale golden hue. Notice anything interesting there? These four alchemical stages match the exact colors of our four cosmic horses, and trust me, that is no coincidence. And this setup brilliantly illustrates the underlying esoteric story that we're going to trace today. It's all about the dramatic journey of the sun through the zodiac. Think about it. In ancient astrology, the sun rises and gains power in Aries. It hits its absolute peak in the summer, but then it eventually falls and literally dies in the dark winter months, specifically in the house of Capricorn. Keep this cycle of light and darkness in the back of your mind, because it is the exact key that unlocks these seals.
So, let's look at the first seal and see how this builds. The ancient text reads, "And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him." Starting right off with the white horse, we're instantly grounded in albedo, that white stage of alchemy we just talked about. But who, exactly, is this rider supposed to be?
Think about the stark contrast we face here. The literal interpretation gives us this terrifying physical warrior just out there conquering the earth. But the esoteric interpretation, it reveals the true grand reality hidden right above us. We really shouldn't be looking down for a man on earth. We need to be looking up for a conquering constellation in the sky.
And literally every single detail of this white horse hits the mark. In the night sky, the conquering warrior on horseback carrying a bow. I mean, that is unmistakably the constellation Sagittarius. Look at the specific imagery here. His bow points directly to the center of the Milky Way galaxy, that great river of stars. And that crown he was given? Right below Sagittarius sits the constellation Corona Australis, which translates directly to the crown. The ancient writers weren't just writing fantasy here. They were giving us exact astronomical coordinates.
All right, next we crack open the second seal. Out comes a red horse, representing rubedo, the red stage of alchemy. The text tells us that power was given to him to take peace from the earth, and he's handed a great sword. Again, forget the literal, earthly warmonger idea. That's an illusion. The esoteric truth explains exactly why peace is taken from the earth, and honestly, it has absolutely nothing to do with human wars. It's actually all about the sun's descent into darkness.
So here's the astronomical breakdown. The red horse is the constellation Aquilus, but why is peace taken? Well, because in the journey of the zodiac, this is when the sun falls into Capricorn. It's the darkest time of the year, a house traditionally ruled by Saturn, or Kronos, who is very often associated with the adversary in esoteric metaphor. Simply put, when the light dies, peace is taken. And what about that great sword? Right near Aquilus is the Northern Cross, known in antiquity as the flaming sword pointing the way to the tree of life. Plus, Capricorn is an earth sign, which beautifully ties back to the idea of taking peace from the earth. It all just clicks together.
Okay, moving on to the third seal. The text says, "And lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand." So we have now entered the black horse phase. This represents negrido, that dark, initial, highly transformative stage in alchemy. Usually people hear this and picture terrifying literal famine, people weighing out scarce scraps of food on a scale, but we have to contrast that with the majestic celestial reality. Up above us, this isn't a depressing story of starvation, it's actually a beautiful picture of cosmic balance and astronomical measurement. Enter our third horse, the constellation Centaurus. As you know, Centaurus is the half horse, half man. Now, if you map out the stars, you can actually see the figure's arm reaching over, forming part of the neighboring constellation Lupus and reaching directly toward Libra. And what exactly is Libra? The scales, the balances. Centaurus is literally depicted in the heavens as a horseman holding a pair of balances in his hand. It is a completely flawless visual match.
And that brings us to the fourth seal. This one reveals the most ominous figure of all. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. This pale horse represents Citrinitas, the pale or golden culmination of the entire alchemical cycle.
Now, what's just absolutely wild here is how this total horror movie imagery of literal death and hell translates, yet again, into elegant, precise astronomical mechanics. Let's decode this terrifying pale rider.
The pale horse of the heavens is the grand constellation Pegasus. But why in the world does hell follow him? Well, in the progression of the celestial sphere, right behind Pegasus comes the house of Capricorn. And like we established earlier, Capricorn is the domain of Saturn, the absolute lowest, darkest depth of the sun's journey. In ancient esoteric thought, this absolute darkness is the metaphorical hell. It is literally trailing right behind Pegasus in the night sky. And sure enough, an instrument of death is present. Directly underneath Pegasus lies Cygnus, which represents the sword.
Now check this out, because this is where it gets crazy. The ancient scriptures also state that this rider was given power over the fourth part of the earth. If you look at an ancient planisphere, which is a flat map of the night sky divided into quarters, look at how Pegasus physically stretches out. From his tail on one side to his feet on the other, Pegasus spans almost exactly one literal quarter of the ancient star map. The math aligns perfectly with the physical space the constellation actually occupies. And what about those beasts of the earth the text mentions? From an astrological perspective, we aren't looking for wild animals running around on the ground. We look at the celestial earth signs that Pegasus physically touches as it stretches across that quarter of the sky. On one side, it reaches toward Capricorn, the goat. On the other side, it reaches way over to Taurus, the ox. A goat and an ox. These are the celestial beasts of the earth participating in this grand astronomical drama.
So let's bring it all together and look at the whole shebang. Look at how seamlessly this timeless wisdom maps the whole alchemical sequence, white, red, black, and pale, directly to the night sky. You've got Sagittarius with his bow and crown, Aquiles tied to the darkness of Capricorn, Centaurus literally holding the scales of Libra, and Pegasus spanning a quarter of the sky, followed by the darkest house of the zodiac. It's a masterclass in encoded knowledge, preserving real astronomical and alchemical science within a gripping, unforgettable narrative.
I want to leave you with a thought here. When the ancients passed down these texts, they really weren't trying to terrify us with tales of the world ending. They were actually preserving the brilliant mechanics of the cosmos, the journey of the sun, and the highly transformative cycles of nature itself. We just forgot how to read their language. So I leave you with this question. The next time you look up at the night sky, are you just going to see a bunch of random stars? Or will you see the timeless, ancient cipher of the heavens finally unlocked and looking right back at you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep looking up and always keep questioning what you know.